I want you to start by closing your eyes, just for a second. Picture yourself behind the wheel of a rented Mini Cooper. It's the early 2000s, you're in southern Italy, and let's be honest, the air conditioning is barely working.
Oh, I can feel the humidity just hearing that, the sticky steering wheel, the
Yeah.
heat coming off the asphalt.
And you've been driving all day through these winding, sun-baked hills, the engine's struggling a little bit on the inclines, and you are just exhausted. And just as the sun starts to dip, burnishing everything in this heavy, metallic gold light, you round a final bend, and there they are, the temples of Paestum, massive, ancient, and completely silent.
It is such a striking image. And this is exactly where we start our deep dive today
Yeah.
with this fascinating piece of writing by Cornel Overbeek. He describes that exact moment arriving at these ruins at twilight as a perfect coincidence.
Oh, because the lighting matched the history, right?
Exactly. He paints this picture of the sun being, long past its noon, illuminating gods that were also long past their noon. It just sets the stage for what isn't a travel diary or an architectural tour.
No, it's a philosophical investigation.
It is. We aren't just looking at old stones. We are looking at the specific moment humanity, well, filed for divorce from the divine.
That's the mission for this deep dive. We're exploring Overbeek's central question, which is, it's haunting when you really think about it. Where did the old gods go? Did we kill them? Did they just leave? And I think more importantly, what happened to the specific jobs they used to do?
It's a story about the migration of function. We're going to look at how we moved from a world managed by these static, often terrifying deities to a world managed by, well, us, and why that transition left this vacuum that we are still, I think, dangerously trying to fill today.
So let's park the car, stretch our legs, and walk into the ruins. Overbeek describes walking among these massive Doric columns, and he starts identifying the tenants. It's not just some generic Greek temple situation.
No, he points out three very specific personalities living in those stones. And you have to understand who they are to understand what we replace them with. The first one he encounters is Hera,
The queen.
the queen, but not like a Disney queen. Overbeek describes her temple as heavy, grounded. Hera is the goddess of marriage, yes, but in the ancient sense, that really means she's the goddess of continuity.
Right, she's the social glue. She makes sure families, and by extension, the state, don't just fall apart.
Precisely. She is the order enforced by the memory of annihilation. You have to remember, in the myths, she was swallowed by her father, Cronus. She knows what total chaos looks like. She knows what it's like to be consumed by darkness.
So her whole job is just holding it all together.
Yes. Enforcing the lineage, making sure tomorrow looks like today. She is the wall against the dark.
And then a few hundred yards away, you've got the bad boy of the pantheon, Poseidon.
The sea-haunted presence. Even though the stones are worn down, Overbeek says you can still feel this raw power there. Poseidon is so interesting because he represents unstabilized force. He is the earthquake. He is the storm.
He's the part of reality you can't negotiate with.
That's the perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
You can't reason with a tsunami. You can't debate an earthquake. Poseidon represents power that answers to no moral appeal. He doesn't care if you're a good person. If you're in the water during a hurricane, you drown.
He's just raw physics with the personality.
Exactly. And finally, standing a bit apart from them is Athena.
The Temple of Athena.
Yes, and Overbeek describes it with restrained grace. And this is crucial. Athena is the outlier here. She wasn't born from a womb, and she wasn't swallowed by a titan like her siblings. She sprang fully armed from the head of Zeus.
Which is a great image, literally a head egg that becomes a goddess.
Yeah.
But philosophically, what does that signal?
It means she is mind without infancy. She is pure reason. No trauma, no childhood, just intellect. She's the goddess of wisdom and strategy, and Overbeek points out that she's the bridge. She's the one Olympian who consistently favored human cleverness over brute force.
So we have the enforcer of order, that's Hera, the raw force of nature, Poseidon, and the strategic intellect, Athena. But here is the insight that really stopped me in my tracks reading this. Overbeek argues that all three of them share a limitation that human beings don't have.
It's the concept that birth is function. This is such a key takeaway.
Let's unpack that.
Okay, so in the Greek worldview, a god doesn't grow up. A god doesn't have an identity crisis or, a midlife pivot. Poseidon is the sea. He can't decide to take up gardening or become a pacifist.
And Hera is continuity.
She is. She can't decide to be a free spirit. They are static entities. They are born into a fixed role, and they just execute that role for eternity.
They're like software program.
That's a fantastic analogy. They are executables. Runstorm.exe, runmarriage.exe. Immensely powerful, but they are trapped in their own nature. They have no potential for change. They are complete the moment they exist.
Which brings us to the moment of the shift. Overbeek is standing there, looking at these static, powerful entities, and he has this realization. We didn't go to war with them. There was no great battle where humans stormed Olympus.
No. The whole war against the gods is a myth we tell ourselves to feel strong. The reality, according to Overbeek, is much more, well, mundane. They became unemployed.
I love that phrasing. The gods were not overthrown, they were outgrown.
It frames the ruins completely differently, doesn't it? It's not a graveyard, it's a graduation ceremony. Think about that migration of function. We used to hire gods to do specific jobs for civilization, to handle the scary stuff, the big stuff.
But then we invented tools that did those jobs better.
Exactly.
Let's trace that migration, because this is fascinating. Take Hera. We used to need a terrifying goddess to enforce social contracts and marriage vows because we didn't have a strong enough system.
And now, we have civil law, we have contracts, we have the state, we institutionalized order. We wrote it down in constitutions and statutes, so we didn't need to pray for stability anymore.
We created a legal system that does Hera's job, but without the need for animal sacrifice.
Right. And Athena, the goddess of craft and strategy,
Where'd she go?
she migrated into the university, into technique, into education. We don't pray for wisdom, we study. We built institutions that mass-produce the very thing she used to dispense as a favor. We systematized the intellect.
And Poseidon. I mean, this is the one that feels the most arrogant on our part. We took the job of master of the sea.
This is the clearest example of the shift. We replaced the trident with a chart, the engine, and the mathematical formula. We didn't stop the storms. Poseidon is still out there in a sense. But we built ships that don't care about his anger.
We used math to predict the tides.
We tamed the domain through technology.
So the silence in Paestum isn't because the gods are dead. It's because the office is closed. We took their staplers, we took their filing cabinets, and we moved to a new building down the street called Modernity.
That's it, exactly. We internalized their functions. And this brings us to the pivotal contrast in a whole deep dive. If the gods are defined by being fixed and static, those executable programs, then what are we?
And Overbeek pivots here to the book of Genesis. And I want to be clear for you listening. He isn't pivoting to preach a sermon. He's using Genesis as a counterweight to Greek myth to describe the nature of a human being.
Right. He's contrasting the anthropology. Look at the origin story of Adam versus, say, an Olympian. The Olympians are born of high-octane cosmic matter, Titan blood, lightning, sea foam. They are divine substance.
And Adam is dirt.
Humble, inert soil. But, and this is the nugget of gold right here, he is animated by divine breath.
What is the functional difference between being made of divine substance and having divine breath?
Fluidity of possibility. The gods are finished products. Humans are born unfinished.
Unfinished. I mean, usually we hear that as a criticism, like, oh, you're unfinished, you're not ready, you're incomplete.
But in this context, it's our superpower. Because we are unfinished, we are not locked into a function. The breath of life calls us forward. It implies that a human being is an open-ended project. We are verbs, not nouns.
So unlike Poseidon, who has to be a jerk because he is the storm, I can wake up tomorrow and choose to be different.
Precisely. That is transcendence. Overbeek is very clear. Physically, we are frail. We cannot split mountains. If you fight a tiger, you lose.
Yeah.
But we possess the ability to stand outside of our own nature and judge it.
We can look in the mirror and say, I don't like who I was yesterday.
A god cannot do that. A storm cannot reflect on his violence. A human can. We can choose to be kind when we want to be angry.
Yeah.
We can choose to build when we want to destroy. That moral flexibility is what makes the unfinished animal superior to the static god.
It explains why the ruins feel almost like a nursery. Overbeek calls them a testimony to human adolescence.
It was a time when we needed external parents. We projected our own capabilities onto these giant figures because we weren't strong enough to own them yet. We needed a god of war because we couldn't take responsibility for our own aggression.
Or a goddess of order because we don't trust ourselves to keep a promise without a lightning bolt hanging over our heads.
Yes. So the narrative arc seems pretty triumphant so far, right? We grew up, we took the jobs, we realized we have the breath, the capacity for infinite growth. We fired the nannies and moved into our own apartment.
But that's not the end of the story.
No. You'd think that's it. Humanity wins. But as the sun finally sets in Paestum, and remember, the light is getting blue and dark now, Overbeek's mood shifts. He starts to feel a chill, because when you fire the gods, you create a vacuum.
And nature abhors a vacuum.
And so does the human psyche. This is the danger zone. Overbeek argues that when we cleared out the pantheon, we lost some things that were actually vital for our mental health and our social stability.
He mentions shared ritual and a public grammar of reverence.
Let's break that down. Public grammar of reverence. It means we lost the shared language for talking about things that are sacred. Science gives us a language for how things happen. Law gives us a language for what is allowed. But we lost the shared language for why it matters.
We also lost the concept of the sacralized limit.
This is huge. Think about the difference between a law and a taboo. A law is a regulation. Don't speed or you pay $100. It's a transaction. If I'm rich enough, maybe I don't care about the $100.
But a taboo is different.
A taboo says, don't do this because it violates the cosmic order.
The sacred no.
Exactly. When you remove the gods, you remove the sacred no. All limits become negotiable. If the only reason not to do something is a law, then I just need to change the law or find a loophole. Nothing is fundamentally off limits anymore.
And this is where the demonic enters the conversation. And he's not talking about pitchforks and horns. He's talking about what rushes in to fill that empty space where the gods used to be.
He warns that if you don't worship the divine, you will eventually worship the mundane. And the mundane, well, it makes for a terrible god.
Godlike construct.
Ideologies, the state, the market, a political leader. Overbeek points out that the modern replacements for Zeus and Hera are often harsher and less humane than the old myths.
That feels counterintuitive, though. I mean, Zeus was pretty nasty.
Zeus was nasty, but he was also distant. He had his own life on the mountain. But when a modern ideology becomes a god, it demands total submission. It demands to be in your head 2047. Look at the totalitarian regimes of the 20th century. That is what happens when the state tries to wear the hat of God.
It's that phrase he uses. Demonic energy seeps in when power is unmoored from humility.
That's the key word, humility. The old gods, for all their faults, they reminded us that we were small, we were subjects. When we kill the gods, we trick ourselves into thinking we're the ultimate authority. That is hubris. And historically, hubris is always followed by nemesis.
It brings us back to the paradox of the unfinished human. We have the potential to be better than the gods because we can change. But if we think we are gods, we become monsters.
We have the technology of adults, we have the nukes, the AI, the bioengineering, but spiritually, we might still be toddlers playing with a loaded gun. We fire the external parents, but we haven't quite learned how to parent ourselves yet.
So what's the prescription? Overbeek is standing in the dark now. The ruins are just silhouettes against the night sky. Does he suggest we start sacrificing oxen again? Do we need to bring back the Temple of Hera?
No, and he's very firm on that. There is no going back. Nostalgia is a trap. We know too much about meteorology to worship Poseidon. You can't unknow the science. You can't put the lightning back in the bottle.
So if we can't go back, and the current path, this vacuum filled with dangerous ideologies, is a disaster waiting to happen, what is the third option?
Synthesis. We have to learn to carry the positive influence of the gods without the superstition.
He lists 3 specific things we need to recover. The first is reverence without superstition.
That means retaining the ability to look at a sunset or a newborn baby or even the moral law and feel awe, to see it as sacred. But we do it without needing a fairy tale about a guy with a trident to explain it. We need to secularize the feeling of the sacred without losing the weight of it.
The second is ritual without delusion.
We need shared practices. We need weddings, funerals, coming-of-age ceremonies. We need things that bind us together as a community. But we recognize them as human necessities, psychological tools, rather than magic spells. We need to build the structure of community, even if we don't believe the gods are watching.
And the last one, which sounds like the hardest, transcendence without tyranny.
This is the challenge of our age. We need to believe in things bigger than ourselves, truth, justice, mercy. We need to let those ideals guide us, but we cannot let them solidify into tyrants that crush human dignity. We need to find a way to be small before the truth, without being oppressed by a dictator claiming to speak for it.
It changes the way you look at the ruins at the end of the piece. Overbeek looks back at them one last time.
And he sees them not as a graveyard, but as a mirror.
A mirror.
They are asking us a question. We took the power.
Yep.
We took the thunderbolt. We literally captured electricity. We took the law. We took the seas. But are we ready to carry those powers wisely?
That's a haunting question. It implies the transition isn't over.
It's not. We are still in the middle of the migration. The unfinished animal is still figuring out if it can hold the lightning without burning its own house down.
It makes you look at the news differently. Every time you see a massive political rally where people are screaming for a savior or a tech CEO talking about how their AI is going to solve death.
You see the shadow of the old gods. You see the vacuum begging to be filled. You realize we are trying to build new temples.
And you realize that the work of being human, the work of that divine breath, is a constant choice. We have to choose every day not to be the substance, not to be the fixed power, but to be the fluid, reflecting, ethical being that can navigate between the storms.
That's the burden of adulthood. It's scary, but it's also beautiful. It means the story isn't written yet.
So for everyone listening, next time you're stuck in traffic, or maybe just feeling overwhelmed by the sheer noise of the modern world, think about those silent stones in Paestum.
And ask yourself, what have you put on the empty pedestal? And is it worthy of the reverence you're giving it?
A huge thank you to Cornell Overbeek for this incredible reflection. It's a piece that manages to make 2,500-year-old stones feel urgently relevant tomorrow morning.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that history isn't just about what happened. It's about who we are becoming.
And with that, we'll leave you to your own twilight reflections. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
See you next time.